Hey, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harding. Glad to be back with another incredible guest on the show. Women's History Month series continues. Like I said, I have incredible guests waiting in the wings. But before I bring her on, hit my music. Let's get it. All right. Once again, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Hardin. As this is continued Women's History Month series, where we highlight incredible women in the space of business, sports, media, journalism. Yeah, it's been a great series here, and I've had a lot of incredible women on this show and highlighting them and all the incredible work they've done. I have another one waiting in the wings. But before I bring her on, you can follow the show on all the podcast platforms, whether it is Apple, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, BS3 Network, Roku channel, BS3TVLive.com. Like I said, wherever you consume podcasts, we are there. And you can follow me on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, and TikTok. All right, let me bring in my guest. This is an incredible woman. Resume is tremendous and everything too. She's a sports marketing exec. Also, she is the CEO as well. She's a CEO. She's a boss lady. I mean, everything you have. CEO of the Epic Consulting Group, NBA agent. Also has her own podcast. I mean, she does a little everything. We're going to get into all of that. So welcome to the show, Kate Foley. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's always humbling when you hear the letters that come after your name, and I'm like, wait, what? What is all that? It sounds like a lot. It makes you sound really busy, but I don't know if all of it is.
Well, you're doing a lot of great things, I should say. And when we connected on social media, I said I got to have Kate on and on my Women's History Month series, and I want to spotlight you and highlight you and all the incredible work you're doing in this space. So I really appreciate the time, appreciate you doing this and being on the show.
For sure. Well, thank you for what you're doing. And I always applaud men that step up to the table and champion women. I think it goes both ways, right? There's some really amazing women doing amazing things, and there's amazing men doing amazing things. So I think the more we can lean in and support each other in whatever category you want to fit yourself into is always important, because the next version of yourself is coming, and it's going to take everybody to get us there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And again, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. And as you said, you're very, very busy by the resume and everything, but you're doing, like you said, a lot of incredible work here too. So like I said, I do appreciate the time for sure. So let's get started and everything. First question I always ask my first time guest: who is Kate Foley? And talk a little bit about your background.
Well, I guess it depends on who you're asking.
Okay.
Which hat I have to put on,
Yeah, right.
I'm super fortunate. I'm a CEO of a company. I'm the CMO of another agency that I'm partnered with now. I'm creative director for footwear. But most importantly, I'm a mom. I have 3 amazing kids. And so above all else and everything else that I get to accomplish in this world, raising good humans is my number one focus and goal. And hopefully I get some version of that right. But I'm from Hendersonville, North Carolina. I'm from a small town in Western North Carolina. I went to school in Charleston, South Carolina. If you have not been there, please go, but don't go soon because there's too many people now. It is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I started my career at Jordan Brand 17 years ago. I have been in the NBA for 17 years now, going on my 18th season this year, which is just incredible to think about. But, kind of have my hand in a lot of different pots, lead a lot of different teams and a lot of different initiatives, and trying to find ways to make it all work, but also make sure what we're driving from a brand perspective for our clients really resonates with consumers and, creates an opportunity for them off the court to be a human, a person, and a business outside of just an athlete.
Yeah, incredible. Congratulations on 18 years. That's that's pretty,
It
pretty
ages me, Courtney. It ages me. I'm like, oh, I haven't been doing this long.
Well, no, well, that's an accomplishment in itself. And as you said, that's just the hard work you put in, and I'm sure you said there's peaks and valleys of that for that type of long of a career, and everything too. But we're in that type of industry. What would you say has been some of the significant changes that you've seen throughout your career for that long period of time, of some of the changes that has happened over those years?
Yeah, I think one of the most significant things, and I was just speaking about this at a school in Miami a couple weeks ago, is the educational opportunities that exist now. Back a long time ago, there weren't sports agent classes. I didn't grow up wanting to be a sports agent. It wasn't like that was even like in the realm of possible, right? There weren't females in that space, and it was just really business and marketing, and they were really two different paths. And then you had sports, which was just really for athletes. And so over the last probably decade, you've seen the ability for an industry to kind of combine sports, entertainment, and business, because all three of those exist in one place. And when you look at schools and you look at even down like micro level to the high schools, you'll see sports marketing classes, you'll see sports business classes, right? Which is really a testament to people who are shaping the youth, right? And saying, hey, there's a need for this, there's a want for this, to let them experience something younger, get excited, and have that opportunity to explore what that might look like at a younger age as that starts to define what their path is through college and their career. So I'd say from the educational side, it's just the opportunity in schools to really experience things outside of the normal business and marketing platforms. In the industry, I think you're seeing so much change so rapidly, whether that's in women's sports. The WNBA collective bargaining agreement just got done, and redone and reshaped, which is phenomenal. And I think on my side that I sit in the NBA, you see a lot of teams recognizing the value that women bring to the table. And whether that's from an emotional standpoint, a balance standpoint, but also their ability to multitask and kind of handle situations that might need a little bit kinder, softer, gentler, conscious conversation or touch. It's not so rugged, right? Old NBA style was very cut, very rugged, very male dominated. And you see a lot of NBA teams now putting women in that leadership position. Misty Bass at the Detroit Pistons, I think, is one of the people who doesn't get enough credit for her ability to change and shape culture. Be a talented team, but if you don't have culture and you don't have buy-in from the locker room, it will not get you where you want to go. And so that's what I think is like the most amazing thing, is you're seeing women really be in leadership positions and be valued for the difference they bring, not the difference that they make just yet, but the difference they bring, and that's shaping what we're seeing in the making happen.
Absolutely. You're right. It's as like you said, it has changed over the years, and as you said, you've seen it from all types, I'm sure, all types of perspectives and things like that. I did read that you had mentioned before that your career wasn't entirely planned, and you originally wanted to be an athletic trainer.
I did.
Right.
I did. I did. I don't play basketball. I'm not going to get picked for pickup. I'm not your typical agent. Usually when I walk in, it shocks a lot of people. It used to offend me when it shocked people. And now I've kind of taken the superhero mask of most people don't expect a small, tiny person to walk in. It's usually an ex-player or someone who's, above 6 feet tall, which I'm not. So I flipped it on itself. Instead of feeling like, how dare they? Now I'm like, I get to see people in truest form when they have no idea who I am. And so I now get to experience you like everyone else does that has no purpose and no power in the industry. And what does that look like, right? Like, how are you showing up compared to when you know who I am and I come in a room and you have that different characteristic? But no, I wanted to be an athletic trainer. I love problem solving. I love fixing. I love sports through that lens is really a mental health game. It was a place that I felt really comfortable. But I hated 5 a.m. football practice in South Carolina, and I hated sock tans. And, those two things went hand in hand. And like I said, it wasn't like, I want to go a different path. It was, here's what I know and here's what I'm comfortable in. And it wasn't until I met George Raveling that I really was pushed outside of my comfort zone to say, hey, there's something more here and there's a different avenue you haven't seen from your small town. I went to a smaller college in South Carolina. You have to kind of be open to those experiences. You have to be open to people saying, I see more in you. Let me help you see it in yourself and experience it. And you're not necessarily always ready, but you kind of have to just say, well, I'm going to jump. I'm going to take that next step and really lean into what somebody else can bring out in you.
Yes, yep, absolutely. All right, well, we got some comments here. If you got any questions for Kate, let us know and everything. So yes, it's an interactive podcast. So
okay, well, that could get a little spicy.
It can,
make my Thursday a little spicy.
Yes, it's very interactive. So if, like I say, if you got any questions or anything, we can vet them too. So I can always see if there's anything, if it gets too spicy, but usually it doesn't. Usually it doesn't.
All good. It's all good.
Yes. So as you said, your mother as well. Mm-hmm. It's always that balancing act. Like you said, you're a CEO, a mother, you have your podcast, you run your business. How do you balance? I know that's a hard question to answer, but what's your day-to-day like as as a mother, as a CEO, a boss, all these things?
Courtney, I'm fascinated about that. As many times as I've been asked this question, I feel like I should have an elevator. I really do. I feel like that. I think the biggest thing that I've learned as I've gone through my career is there is no balance, right? I think it's for me, I always found myself putting so much pressure of, I have to find this balance. Why can't I find the balance? What am I doing wrong? Yeah. And instead, I've kind of adopted, Emma Greed has a great podcast out, and she talked one time about how life is about trades. And when you start looking at life like you're trading something for something else, like I am going to have to trade going on a trip to Australia here in a couple of weeks to be able to release a shoe, but I'm going to have to trade missing a couple of my kids' sporting events and not being in the office and not being, right at my desk to lead a team. But I'm also going to be able to do something amazing. But then on the other side, I'm going to take some time this summer and spend some quality time with my kids. So you kind of have to trade, right? And you have to realize that what might seem like it's taking away, it's really just giving you an opportunity somewhere else, right? You just have to be intentional about it. Every day is different. Like every day, right. I always describe it to people like this, especially in the NBA, especially in season. We're 3 weeks away from the end of season for some guys. We are weeks and months away from other guys. And we have the draft and so much coming up. It's really just being organized and having enough experience to know what has to be dealt with and what can wait till tomorrow. And then the art of delegation. Like I am not good at it. I still try to be better at it every day, but really allowing the people on my team to say, hey, this is your job now, and I want you to go do it. Not feeling like I have to have control over every little thing, really leaning into like we hire people for a reason. We put them in places to support and become a team, and delegating to them and then really signing off at the end, right? It's beautiful. You get to watch people mature. You get to watch people have experience. And it is definitely nerve-wracking, right? Because it's heavy as the head that wears the crown. So if it goes great, everybody's happy. If there's a problem, it's, my neck they're probably coming for. So I have to find that inner balance for me of knowing what's super important and what can't wait and what is a task for tomorrow? Because you'll burn yourself out. I mean, that's the number one thing we see in sports, especially at this level, is burnout, right? You get burnt out. This industry does not allow for weekends or holidays. It really doesn't. We play on Christmas Day, New Year's Day. We play, 5 nights a week. We play at 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast because it's a West Coast game. Yep. So it's really a machine. And so you have to kind of allow yourself to say, hey, I got to make sure Kate is okay. Because if Kate can't show up, then everybody's struggling. So I want to make sure that I find that internal, like, what is that internal peace and balance? I find a good playlist, honestly,
Yeah.
will help with that.
Yeah.
Anytime I need a little mood change, but also, being in a space where you get to watch others achieve their dreams, right? Sometimes I'm a lot like the Wizard of Oz. I like everybody out front gets to see my clients be amazing humans and do great things. And I get to be the Wizard of Oz kind of behind the curtain, ensuring that we're moving down the right path, doing the right things. We're setting them up for success. And it's not for everybody either. A lot of people want the spotlight. A lot of people want to be the face until it's not a good thing to be the face. And then they don't want it anymore. So you kind of have to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and you're right, and I think too, as you said, burnout, and you talk about mental health and things like that. But as you said, you got to be the best version of yourself. You
Yeah.
got to be well rested. You have to be, on point. You have to always, But then again, you're not your best version of yourself. As you said, it can't things can't get accomplished or the way you want it to, and you got to be there for your clients and things like that. And I've heard from other agents too. They say the same thing. It's like, yes, I'm helping them with, mold their career, but also could be a mentor or, for someone for advice, and you're setting them up for success. And if you're not your best version, you can't do that for your own clients, but you have to take care of yourself too on top of that.
Totally. And I think, one of the biggest things that I have learned as I've gone through my career is really being profound in who Kate is and being okay that I'm not for everybody, being okay that I'm not going to look the way people want, or I'm probably not going to talk the way they want, or I'm not going to be high energy or low energy, whatever that person might need. And I think, I ask each of my clients to show up authentically, right? Like show up your authentic self. And so for a couple years, I got lost and I was trying to fit into the mold that I was being told, this is what you need to do. And this is who you need to be, because this is what's expected of you. And it's terrifying now to look back, and I can see in certain moments where I'm like, that wasn't my true self. But now, I'm older, I have more experience, and it's important for me for young women to understand that, you're going to walk in a room and some people are going to think you're supposed to be there, and some people are going to ask why you're there. And it's not your job to answer either of those questions. It's your job to show up. Right. And, our clients, right, they can call for anything as simple as, what am I doing tomorrow and what's on my schedule, to I'm not going to show up to this. Can you back me out of this because my schedule has changed, to I'm not getting approval on footwear and we're releasing it in 3 weeks and I have to make the decision. And, is that the right decision? Is that what my client would want? But someone's got to make the decision because we have to move forward. And so I'm fortunate I work with amazing young men that, have been in, some of them I've had for 17, 18 years. I just watched Jimmer Fredette go up into the rafters at BYU. And, it's really special when you get to be a part of their career from beginning to the next phase and the next phase, right? You don't see that a lot in agencies. A lot of guys flip and flop and flip and flop, and they go back and forth. And, my goal is always to be a part of their lives and support them in whatever phase of their career that they're in, which also gives me a lot of experience because I've seen the beginning, I've seen the middle, I've seen the end, I've seen the high, the low. So it helps me give them a little piece that there isn't anything that we're going to go through as a team that someone else on our team doesn't have experience in or guidance in, and really giving them that solace to say, hey, this is the right group of people leading me to where I want to go.
Yeah, and they're investing in you, and you're growing in. And I'm sure, like said, some of your clients become like family.
Yeah.
You said you're seeing him for 17 years, and then you see someone. You said you see someone grow from a young athlete, a young man or woman, and then they continue to keep rising. And you continue to keep, progressing, and they grow up, and then you said you're seeing that growth, and that was one of the questions that was in the chat, was going to be one of mine. What is the most memorable moment in your career so far, or the most rewarding, I should say, and I'm sure what's a challenge, a part of this, working with athletes as well.
It's funny because I treat them like people.
Yeah.
Right. So many people get caught up in you're Steph, you're Giannis, you're, Trey, you're Dyson. And it's like, you're just a normal person to me. And I think the level of respect that gives and commands, because that requires them to look at me as a person too, not somebody that's, providing a service. Like, I have a family, I have a life, I'm committed to yours, you're committed to mine. And that's why aligning yourself and really identifying yourself of who you want to work with and what your purpose is, right? Is your purpose to make a ton of money and you don't have how many clients you have? Is your purpose to create an amazing brand portfolio for someone and you're able to see a commercial change somebody's life unintentionally through a consumer? You really have to, as a person, know what your values are and your core morals are. I think I have one coming up, so I'll say that one second. One of my first ones was early in my career when Steph won his first MVP. And being there at the speech, I brought my dad. Having my dad be a part of that was probably a really memorable moment for me because it had nothing to do with me. I was just a small part of the success that was achieved on that level with him for a long time. And so when you watch somebody work so hard to get where they want to go and then they get it, it's so rewarding because I see how much time and energy goes into all of these things. It's not as simple as what people think. And same thing for draft night. I think draft night's always really special for me when you see these young athletes, their dream since they were 5 is to be in the NBA. And one of the things I always say to our young guys is, getting to the NBA is easy. Staying in the NBA is hard.
Right.
And so I don't want, when I say, what's your goal? And they say, I want to, make it to the NBA. I quickly remind them that they have to think bigger. You need to stay in the NBA. You want to have a career in the NBA. Getting there is easy. You can walk across the stage, but staying there for 10 years, 15 years, making an impact, that's hard. That's hard. So those little moments that I get to see behind the curtain are really cool. I think one moment we have coming up that I think is going to be just one of that will probably supersede some of them. We're releasing the Giddy One Outback.
Yes, and you want to talk about that. Yeah, so elaborate on that for sure.
With Puma, Josh Giddey of the Chicago Bulls has had a tremendous season this year.
Yes.
We were traded last year. This is his second season there, kind of like first really settled season. Signed with Puma this off season. This is the first time. This will be my fifth. This is my fifth. I have a sixth coming that I can't say, but this is my fifth signature shoe line in retail that I've done in my career.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And it's humbling because I'm like, again, I've been doing it so long, but it's the first time we've done it this quickly. Like, we put a shoe usually takes like 18 months to get to retail. We got it on his feet with Puma, who moved really quickly in the ideation phase and execution phase to start the season. That was my goal, was sign in July, get it on his feet, start of the season, and then you'll be able to purchase it globally May the 2nd. So not even a year, which is really, really, really unheard of in the shoe market. But it's a moment knowing that Josh has had some really big peaks and some really big valleys, to watch someone come out on the other side and have a brand really put a lot behind him and him step up to the plate as a person and as an athlete to drive this business is going to be really special to see, because I know them all as people, so I think they all deserve it. But to watch the industry and watch the world and the consumer really see how much time and energy he's put into something for them, I think it's going to be really special.
Those are great. I mean, great moments, as you said. And you name drop, a couple Steph Curry, no, but that just again shows how much of what you've been doing. Even you said pulling back that curtain behind the scenes. You just called yourself the wizard. You're like the Wizard of Oz. But you got to see, as you said, being part of memorable moments. Steph Curry said winning that MVP, and I mean he was the unanimous MVP. At the one time, and just to see one of the greatest players of all time, one of my favorite players, just one of my favorite players of all time as well. But to see that growth, as you said, making it to the league, him, coming in, he's had name recognition, stuff like that, but working hard to where he is today. As you said, you've seen it from that just stepping away, and now to see him being regarded as one of the top 10, 12 players ever,
Yeah.
4-time champion,
Yeah.
and all, everything that he's, 2-time MVP and all the things he accomplished, it has to be rewarding, as you said, just being a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the thing that's super interesting is when I started with Stefan, when I started with Giannis, they were nobodies, right? They were just in the league. And I remember telling my boss, Jeff Austin, at the time when I first went into my first agency from Nike at Octagon, and I said, this is great. Like, we get summers off. The Warriors weren't good. They were done in April. I hadn't been through my first draft yet. And I was like, this is awesome. Fast forward to a year later. And I'm like, what do you mean we're playing longer than April?
We're in the playoffs, right?
Playoffs? What do you mean we have 3 new top 10 picks are now on my desk? Like, wait, what? So it was a little bit of a shock, but I was fortunate enough to have great mentorship, from Jordan to Nike to Octagon with Jeff Austin, of really letting me say, hey, like, grow, right? And I think when you can step into a space where you're like, hey, we're growing and we're learning together. I got some of it right. We got some of it wrong. And then, fast forward, 10 years later, and I have guys that are 22, 23 years old, and I'm saying, hey, this is what's coming. And I think that's where I kind of hang my hat on value of I've built it before and I can help you build it again. I can't make you anybody. So many people are like, can you make me this? Can you make me that? And my answer is no. Like, somebody will tell you yes, but it won't be me.
It won't be you, right?
It won't be me. I'm a no. Usually I get to share a lot of the no's. So when I say yes, everybody gets excited. For whatever reason, my no's come off a little softer to everyone. I don't know. But when you have that experience and you're like, hey, like, I've seen this before and I see the potential. It also goes back to, I love working with really great people who happen to be talented. I am not interested in working with really talented people that are, their talent's high, but their moral compass is low. I have to sacrifice a lot of my life, right? I miss a lot. I miss a lot of things in my family and my friends to be able to do my job. And I want to know that I'm doing it for people that value that, but also that are, aligned with how I want to treat people and how I show up and what compassion looks like and what empathy looks like. And I think sometimes you can get lost in that, when you're looking at millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, it's easy to get lost in the little things. So I try and keep everybody honest.
Yeah. You keep that perspective and humble and say, hey, as you said, you could get lost in that. I'm sure who you're with and things like that. But if you have that good support system, that definitely would keep you humble and say not get so lost in it either, because I'm sure it could really become that as well. You also have your podcast, Her Table podcast. I want to talk about that as well, and it's with NFL producer Megan Martinez as well. So it celebrates and elevates the stories of other female pioneers in the sports industry. Talk a little bit about the the Her Table podcast, what it entails, what it's about, and what do you want people to get out of it?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things that I've ever done. I think you sit here and you do shows like this and you learn so much, and you see somebody and then you get to meet them or have a conversation with them and you walk away feeling like that's not what I expected, and you feel motivated and moved by it. And Her Table was a place for us to say, hey, like, we're both women. We're both in positions that we want to celebrate other women. And whether that's, we had so many amazing guests. We've had the first NFL women's coach that was a woman, and Jen Walter. We've had cheerleaders on, nutritionists on. There's so many women that work in sports that oftentimes, in years past haven't been in leadership positions, and they're now becoming in leadership positions, right? And I think really just allowing them a place to share their story, because I'm a big believer of if you can see her, you can be her, right? Because so many times people will say like, who is that? Like I want to be her. I want to be her. Well, who is that? Right? Like what you see and what you read might not necessarily be the thing that is meaningful or you attach to or you draw from or inspires you. It might be something that she struggled with that she wants to share, or a moment that's really allowed her, you know, to say, hey, I could be more. I mean, you look at Becky Bonner from the Orlando Magic and, you know, Coach K for her, she came on and talked about how Coach K with Team USA really is what pushed her to become a scout. Right. And so again, I love women that are unassuming, and you meet them at the grocery store and you have no idea that, you know, I call her the hire and fire, right? She decides the key factors of who they draft and why they draft people. And so I think you're finding a place at her table that whether it's, you know, a small role, a big role, all of them happen, and just really setting a table for women to be able to share that and share their story and who they are. Because I think, you know, I always try and say to people when they ask me or they're struggling and they're lost, your job is what you do. It's not who you are. And so, you know, it's especially in a sports industry, especially at this level and high level, and even for other jobs, you can get lost in yourself. It's what you do. It's not who you are. And so really allowing those women to share who they are and what they do was important to me.
Oh, I love that. I really do. I like that. That's great advice too. And with that, I think anyone could take from that as well. Kind of alluded earlier, we were talking about, you know, you say you deal with contracts, things like that. What you think of the CBA and the WNBA? You know, have your eyes on that. They were able to come to an agreement. When you're in those type of conversations and moments where it can get tense, and when you're negotiating and things like that, first and foremost, what you think of the WNBA and the CBA? They were able to come together in agreement. But when you're in those types of conversations and negotiations, what goes, if you could peel back a curtain just a little bit of what goes on those conversations, because you know we just see what's reported and things like that, and there's always two sides of things and everything too. But when you're in those rooms and you're in those, as you said, as an agent, when you're in those rooms and you're talking about contracts and money and things like that, talk about how that process is, and what did you think of the WNBA and getting the CBA finally getting that settled?
Yeah, you know, I don't sit in the WNBA.
Right, I know.
I want to be very clear for everybody that's watching. Don't come for me.
No, don't come for Kate.
Come for me.
She's not in the WNBA.
From a woman's lens, my friends that work in the WNBA, you know, some players that we've been fortunate enough to work with in campaigns and partnerships. You know, I think when you have a situation that lends itself that is a little different, I think one of the things I learned from one of the agents we had on her table that works in women's sports was there was no maternity leave for a while. And that's insane to me. And so, you know, but you don't know that. And so when you learn things, you're like, why not? And I think when you look at the CBA and you look at how profound the players were and what their goals were, right? And I think they had some great leadership, and, you know, Nafisa Collier's an amazing human, an amazing leader. Her agent, Erin Kane, really is a good human and helps guide, right? The person first, player second. And, you know, you look at things that we saw, they just passed. You can't, you know, if they want to trade you, they have to have approval if you're pregnant. Like, that's impactful, right? Because that's the side, men's or women's, that's the side I think consumers and fans don't truly understand of, you know, we're not, yes, it's all a checkerboard and a chessboard and a number sheet, and they do have a job to do at the end of the day. But, you know, when you get traded and you have 24 hours to report, that's a lot, right? It's a lot for the person. It's a lot for the family. It's a lot for your kids. It's a lifestyle you sign up for. So I am fully aware of that. That doesn't take away the human side of the emotion side. And also that, like, oh my gosh, what now? Right. And so you look at things like small things like that make sense. Their travel changed, which I think is beautiful. I think, you know, I think we as consumers don't fully understand the depth of what was needed and what happened. I think seeing the players be so unified, I think the number one thing to any negotiation is you have to know what you want and you have to know what you're willing to walk away from. And so you have to know that if you go in there and it's not gonna be what you want. I can tell you right now, I've never walked into any negotiation, contract, pitch, and them say, you can have whatever you want. Right. Ever. Yeah. Ever. It sounds cool. It happens on TV. Yeah. But it's not, because those people also have a job to do. And so when you walk into negotiations, you have to know what you want, I call it the stopgap. Like what are you willing to get up and walk away from? Yeah. And then what are you willing to bend on? But then in the reverse, you have to look at it through their lens of what do they have to have? What do we think they might give up or bend on, right? Like what flexibility do we think they have? They might not tell us, but if I was in their shoes, this is what I would be able to flex on. Yep. And what do we think makes them get up and walk away from the table? A lot of times people think it's like who can pound their chest the hardest, who can talk the loudest, right? Stomp their hand on a desk. Like a lot of times the easier conversations and contracts are ones where you come into it with empathy from the other side, right? Because they all got a job to do and someone's telling them yes or no, just like I'm getting told yes or no. So you have to come into it and say, hey, put the wall down and the human side. And I think that's one of the things that I use to my advantage is, I just want to say, hey, we both got a job to do. I want to do it respectfully. I want to do it kindly with compassion and understanding, but no, I have a job to do. So yes, we're going to be nice and kind and respectful, but I also have a job to do too. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, women come in and we're just going to get whatever we want. She has no idea what she's doing. And, maybe that was the case one time, but, gone is the day, right? That's not the case. And so sometimes this industry is so small, you end up negotiating with people you negotiated with before at different agencies or companies or brands or teams. And so you're like, oh, I know how they work. But it's also collective information, right? Of like, who do you know that knows them, that knows what else is going on, right? And so I always try and say, like, at the end of the day, we're people, right? We have jobs to do. And I don't want to come in and just yell at people and tell them what I want. I want to come in and feel like, hey, they respect me. I was able to achieve what I wanted firmly. But I also understand that, there's another side to this as well.
Yeah, and yes, and women, on the W for the WBA, the players, they stood on business and they fought and they said, hey, we're gonna. As you said, it wasn't a fact of we're gonna get what we want to get, but we do have these things that we want, revenue share. We want part of the revenue share. You said travel. Other things, and they got it, and it was a historic, deal that they got. I'm so glad they got it, and you said they were unified, and I think that was one of the biggest things that I still feel like it's not getting enough publicity about is they stayed unified. Yes, of course, there's a lot of different. I mean, you're negotiating for over 144 women. So, or even more. So you're trying to you're trying to get, everybody's got their own opinions and things like that. But as you said, they stayed unified for the most part. They stayed unified, and I'm glad it came out the way it did. So now we got a season coming up. So it's very exciting.
That is exciting. It is. And I think one of the biggest things that you look at is, in any sport, men's or women's, right, is just one unified voice, right? Yes. I think it's, what's the little saying? It's like loose lips sink ships. Like we don't, you can't talk to me. I'm not going to tell you what you want to know. And, it's easy because you feel like, hey, I'm just going to go get all this information. It's not, you have the media reporting, you have inter-team reporting, you have players talking to each other outside of this group chat or that group chat. And so, I think that's when you can say, hey, it helps everybody when we have one goal, one voice. And so they really stepped in and leaned into that. And you see it on the men's side too. I mean, they're constantly changing, evolving, right? This business is evolving quickly and rapidly. You're seeing in the NBA, where they're looking at expanding two teams very quickly. I think it's interesting of the timing, but we'll see what plays out there. I think there's more under the hood there than we all anticipate. But, it's also the money is different for the men now, right? And so when you look at guys that are playing in the league and they play, you look at Braun, who has played in the league for a long time. Like, what's next for him, right? And so, you look at Stephen, James Harden, Kevin Durant, that whole regime of guys is, ultimately going to be the next phase of, retired guys. And so they're only 40 years old. So what are they going to do for the next 40 that is intriguing and engaging, but also allows them to kind of like lean in and support, right? A business that they've built, right? And those iconic guys have built and shaped this business the way that it is on and off the court. And so making sure the wheels don't fall off when they exit, I think is probably pretty important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I just got a couple more. I could have talked to you for hours. I know I could have. I love this conversation. I just really do, as you say, this peeling back the curtain just to see, from your perspective and things like that. As we see with leading women CEOs as yourself in this business and things like that, to continue to grow and things like that. What do you think needs to happen? As you said, you've done this for a long time, to get even just more women in the field of CEOs or in the field of being an agent in this business? What would you say needs to happen to get more women in the field?
I think it's more women sharing their stories. I think it's also being realistic and transparent about what that looks like. I think, much like we talked burnout earlier, right? It's understanding what the commitment is when you sign up for something like this, but also understanding that it's not going to happen overnight. I think there are some generations behind me that think I can just go do this myself and I can go be an agent today. And, I look at myself and there might be someone who's, met their requirements and passed the agent exam and has the same piece of paper that I do, but they don't have the experience and the expertise that I do. And so I think it's easy to get caught up in saying like, hey, I want to go be an agent. I want to go, build portfolios. I want to go manage billion-dollar brands. Like, that's a lot. Like, it sounds super cool, but it is a lot to manage. And not only for one athlete, for multiple athletes and multiple ages and phases of athletes, everybody needs something different at different times. So I think really trying to say, hey, like, this is what inspires me. This is what interests me. What does that look like? And instead of saying, I always tell everybody I chat with, like, I don't think internships are like, you have to have them. Like, I'm not hiring someone because you have an internship. I'm hiring someone do you have experience in multiple different things? Like, do you know how to take the trash out and do a contract? Like, and everything that goes in between, because you never know when I'm going to say, hey, can you lean in here? And it's almost like having as many tools in your tool belt as you can, so that when a moment presents itself, you can say, hey, I know what to do here, or I think I know what to do here, right? And or I don't, but I'm willing to learn. Is just as important of a phase, right? Like, I don't know that yet, but I want to. And so I think sometimes we get caught up seeing people in roles, like even for myself, I see so many young women that are like, oh my gosh, I want to be just like you. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. You missed the crying at night, the like missing, my sister's graduation and missing my best friend's wedding because I felt like I had to be at work, or not taking the maternity that I should have taken because I felt like I had to get right back to work or I was going to be replaced. You missed all of these moments to get on the other side. And so, I am fortunate enough that I'm on the other side of struggle, right? Like, I am on the other side of those mountains, but you have to get over them to know that when the wheels fall off, guess what? You pick them up, you put them back on, you keep going, you carry them, you do whatever you got to do. It's not a defining moment, right? Like, there's no one defining moment in my career. It's these moments that matter, and the peaks and the valleys, right? And, the valleys remind you why you work so hard for the peaks, and the peaks remind you that it is possible. right?
Right.
You just have
Yeah.
to work. And so I think now that's what I want to see change, is people being more honest about what it takes to get where you want to go. And it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to wake up and be this CEO, CMO, doing all of these things. You're
Super
not.
agent. Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah.
And if you are, it won't be for long.
Yeah. It's a
You,
short wave.
it's
Right.
a short
Yes.
wind, because,
Mhm.
you have to also be, you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? And, the biggest thing you have in life is your reputation, right? That's the
Yes.
number one thing that you have, and how you treat people. They might not remember what you did, but how you made them feel, and how you treated them, and what impact you can make, the smallest thing, right? And, when you look at all these people you interact with, whether it's the president, the GM, you have the superstar on the team, like, the travel people matter, the equipment people matter, the athletic trainers matter, the service people matter, in the family room that look after your family. I think, all of those people matter. So I think you have to really take a breath and say, hey, this is my goal and where I want to get to.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to kind of blaze the path to get there. I'm not going to step right into it. And if you do step right into it, how are you going to stay there? It's the same thing, right? Like, you can get yourself in a room, but how are you going to get invited back? Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not just a one-time thing. And this industry is really small. And so I think that's, the league office put out a memorandum to agents about how to communicate with GMs. And I was talking to a couple of my colleagues, and I'm like, why are they sending this? Like, how to approach a GM and how to have a conversation with GM? And one of my colleagues was like, people are young and they don't have experience, and they think they can just go in and beat their chest and tell, a really powerful team, go tell Danny Ainge what you think. No,
Right.
sir, no, you cannot. Guess
No.
what? That phone call's not getting picked up next time. I
Right.
wanted to pick up the phone every time I call, because it's a mutually beneficial conversation. It's productive. It's respectful, right? I've been on the other side, where Landry Fields was one of my very first NBA clients. And then I got to deal with him as a GM in Atlanta with Wesley Matthews on the team. And they're the same age, right? And so I had them both at the beginning. And so, flipping my hat of how I talked to Landry, it wasn't a client anymore from an NBA perspective. It was leadership on a team that I needed to address a little bit differently, and having the wherewithal to know to do that. It's not just I'm loud and I can get what I want. It's how am I going to approach it? If you don't know, ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you talk about getting the experience and having that, being professional. As you said, you're not going to just, as you said, you get a memorandum from the league saying how to speak to someone. Like GMs, you're probably thinking, okay, what's going on? Like, why are these people not able to know how to talk to people? But again, it comes with experience. It comes, you're not just going to say, you're not going to just come in there and be all, beating your chest out, you said, and and things like that. You're not going to get the respect of that. So as you said, you got to earn respect, you got to get respect. So it's
totally. And it comes back to your players too. I've fortunately worked with a lot of players. Some of them I still work with them. Some of them I don't. I think, my biggest thing is, if I say my client is going to do something, or, they understand, I need my client to have my back and do that, because they're only diminishing my word when they don't do those things.
Your reputation.
Right. And, so when a coach or somebody says we need them to do this, or they're not always on time. Like, I need to know that when you hear me say, we're not going to be late anymore, it's you understand, because now it's impacting my reputation.
Right.
I told them you understand, and they're telling me, can you get him in line? And it's like, yeah. And if I can't, then I look like I can't manage you. I look like I don't have value, because I can't be the person and play the role I'm expected to. Not because I can't, but because you're unwilling to do that. And so I think when everybody understands the ecosystem and how it works, everybody gets the best out of everybody, right? And I think that's what you see in these franchises of, iconic franchises, to ones that just, can't get out of their own way sometimes. And some of that's players, some of that's reps. I look at a lot of these young guys and I think, I call it the no person, or they call it the Kate, is what they call it. Where's your Kate? Because I just tell you no, like, no, not doing that. No,
not doing that. Right.
That's not going to work. But also knowing what the goal is of the client. Like, I think one of the most interesting topics, it's a hot topic, but you look at the Atlanta Hawks and their Magic City partnership, right? Yeah. I was probably one of the first agents that raised my hand with my partner, Daniel Moldovan, and said, hey, not for us.
Not going to do it. Right.
And, it's not you have to plead your case, right? And I think, look, to each their own. If that's how they want to represent the city of Atlanta and their franchise, that's fine. My job is to make sure that my client, Dyson Daniels, is represented in the way he wants to be represented holistically. And so to say, hey, like, love that for you guys. We are just not going to participate in that due to other circumstances and partnerships that are limiting us in that. And that's not where we want to show up. And then you see the league come down and say, no,
yeah, we're not going to do it.
I've never in my career seen that happen. I've never seen it happen from a team side, but I've never seen the league come down and say kibosh something, because I don't think people truly understand there's, the league and then there's the teams, right? Yes. Like there's the league office and then there's the team office, and they are not the same. They're not the same people. Right. They don't report to each other, except for everyone reports to Adam. But, I've never seen one step over the other in that sense. And, I think it's the core values of what the league represents oftentimes isn't what the team represents, but the league trumps all, right? Because at the end of the day, the guys play, in the league for the team.
For the team,
right?
Yes.
They don't play on the team, for the league. Like, no, they're in the league. That's just their assignment. Yeah.
But the league overall, they make that, if they make that decision, as you said, then that's it, and
when it set the tone. Like, honestly, like I said, I was shocked. I was like, oh, but then I also on the side was like, see, I was right.
You guys knew. You're like, no,
I knew that this probably wasn't going to go the direction anybody felt
that they thought.
Productive. Yeah, but sometimes you got to stand up and be okay to, take that heat and say, hey, this is okay. My job is to protect our clients, right? And to make sure that they are protected. And that's whether that's with brands or teams. It's to make sure their voices are heard and they are allowed to remain themselves, right? They're who they stand for and their family and their parents and the name on the back, right? They always say you play for the team on the front, but you play because of the name on your back.
Your name on your back. Yeah. Your name is important.
Exactly. And so you want to be able to carry that and not get lost in it. And there's some young guys lost in it right now. And I hope they find their way out, but it's all part of it.
It's all part of it.
Part of it, it's
all the growth. Yep.
It's interesting to listen to the the calls we sit on, and the draft is 58 guys now. I think it's like 58. That's 58 guys that don't have a job, not because they're not good enough, not because they're too old. There's just 58 guys without a job because they have to draft that amount. Yeah. And so when you look at in totality, the league and how quickly it changes, it goes back to what I said earlier, is getting there isn't enough. It's staying there, right? Yeah. Staying there and staying, ready, because your moment, if you look at a lot of the iconic guys have been on terrible teams. Yes. They haven't played. They have had injury after injury after injury, but that's why like off the court matters so much, because that's what keeps you relevant. That's what keeps you real. And the consumer and what they're digesting changes so fast. And so when you look at brand and marketing, you have to really be in sync of what are you going to be proud of 10 years from now. And if you are just doing it for the money, do as much marketing as you can. Take all the money.
All the money up front, yes.
Take all the money. But if you say, hey, I don't drink soda, I don't like soda, it's not good for you, then you don't need to be in a Sprite campaign. Don't lie to people, right? Stay authentic. It's hard. Once you tell the lie, you got to keep telling the lie. And so you're seeing consumers figure that out, right? In the day of social media, they'll catch you somewhere talking to your friend saying, oh, I don't drink that. And now it's over the internet, but you're in a Sprite campaign.
Sprite campaign. So, you get called out.
So you really have to be aware and profound in what you want to represent and stand for. And you might miss something, but what's for you won't miss you.
Yeah.
So you have to
Exactly.
find peace in that.
Yeah, very well said. Last one, like I said, we could have did a 2-3 hour podcast for sure. I'm
Nobody
enjoying it.
wants to hear me for 3
I
hours. No one does.
know. But it is Women's History Month, and I wanted to spotlight and highlight you and the incredible things you're doing, as I said at the top. But what does Women's History Month mean to you on a professional and a personal level? You kind of alluded to it, but what does that mean to Women's History Month means to you?
You know, I think anytime we can celebrate humans, great people in general, I think we should. I think it's easy to forget that people need to feel validated and heard, but most importantly, seen. And, you know, I think Women's History Month is so important because there's so many women before me that have blazed a path, that have created an opportunity for me to lean into, and men as well, right? I've had a lot of great male mentors in my career. I work in a male industry. I work in a male dominated industry.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's important because again, if you can see her, you can be her. And so if there's one young lady that says, hey, you know what, I want to be some version of that, it makes my heart happy, because I don't do any of this for me, right? Like doing her table, doing this podcast, doing any media, it's not my job to be in front of the camera. 90% of the time I'm the one behind it, directing what's going on.
Right.
But I'm not being honest to what I'm telling other people if I'm not making myself available to share my story, so that somebody else might have the opportunity to say, hey, I'm from a small town. I went to a small college. I started and thought I wanted to do this, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go try something different, right? And, you know, when you can share those stories and celebrate women, I don't do it for me. I do it for the next me. Right. It's for the one after me and the one after her. So if I have to work really hard right now to get that seat at the table, to get in that room, to have those conversations, it should come with a level of like, this was a lot of work. Don't mess it up. Right. Like, we're going to get there. And I think it's easy for women to be like, oh, they're catty and I've been called dramatic. I've been called emotional. The things you're like, people would probably die over, but you're like, you're going to hear it. Right. And, it's hard, but I want to make a place where it's like, it's not the, you're not the anomaly anymore. Like you're not the exception. You're the rule, right? Where you're like, this is the level of person we want to work with. This is the level of expertise I'm looking for from a male or a female. I just happen to be female, so I can stand on that podium. I have a daughter. And so I always say, if she can look up to me for the person I am, not for what I do, but for how I treat people, even when they're not nice to me and I want to just say something I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
I want her to look at me and say, hey, you know what? I can be a mom. I can be a CEO. I can be an executive. I can, run 2 companies. I can sit at the head of the table in a shoe design meeting, but I don't play basketball. Like, I can do all of those things and still be a really good person. I can be a mom. I can be a great friend. I can be a great colleague. And, when I started this, there weren't a lot of females for me to say, hey, like, I'm having a kid. What do I do? I remember when I had my first son, one of my colleagues asked me when I would be back to work after, like, 2 days after I had my son. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And his response was, and again, I was the only female in the department, but was, well, my wife had a kid and I went right back to work. And I was like, the key part of that is your wife had a child. You did not. Yeah. And so, when you look at spaces like that, where you're creating a role or you're educating people too, I think that's also really important to me for Women's Month, is educating people on what's an appropriate way to talk to a person, but what's an appropriate way to talk to a female, what does that standard of conversation look like? Even though we're in a male dominated sport, there's conversations I don't need to be a part of, care to be a part of, but that's on me to remove myself, right? I can only control me. So really just putting all of this in a place where somebody gets it at some point, and if they're feeling uninspired, they feel inspired. If they feel lost, they know that it's okay and you can come out the other side. But Women's History Month is really for the next me, right? And making sure that the path is a little bit easier for the next me as much as I can with whatever time I have on this earth.
Very well said. And as you said, that was, he said, he said, you're here to say, hey, educate, and to see what's the next. And you said respect, all those things. Really appreciate that. Kate, it's been tremendous talking with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so much. I mean, there's so much I could have layered into even more, but I said, we'll cut it there. But this has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. I hope we can do this again at another
Awesome.
time
Love
as
to.
well. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. But thank you again. Like I said, happy Women's History
Thank
Month
you.
to you, and much success and many blessings moving forward. Can't wait to continue to see you keep going and keep going. As what you said, almost 18 years in this industry is tremendous. That's an incredible thing to have, and that's what you're doing. So, just said much success to you, and but let everyone know they can follow you. Want to reach out to you and all those things, just to see, just to say if they wanted some advice or anything like that too.
Yeah, no, love to. Like I said, I'm always happy as much as I can, and my schedule and life allows it. I'm always happy to do it, but would love to. We'll have to get one of the boys to come on. I think that would be an interesting
Yeah,
podcast
I
to
love
have them
that.
come on and talk about what it's like to have a female in leadership on your team
Yeah,
that
sure.
doesn't play basketball.
Yeah,
My perspective's often a little bit different, which is I think what's fun for them because they see things through like an athlete lens, and I see it
hmm.
through the
Oh,
person
I would
behind
love
the
that.
lens.
Appreciate that. Yes.
That would
Appreciate
make
that.
it. Well, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
like I said, anything I can ever do, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to do it. And thanks so much for celebrating Women's History Month with us.
I appreciate that. Thank you again, and enjoy the weekend, and maybe
Thank you.
get a little bit of a break. I guess that you would say, if there is one, take a little bit of a break if you can.
We're actually this weekend surprising Dyson Daniels is winning the Jason Collier award for the Atlanta Hawks for his
Oh, yeah.
philanthropic endeavors this year. So outside of sport, you get to celebrate the moments that matter off the court and changing people's lives. So I'll be in Atlanta this weekend to do that with him, but most importantly, just to celebrate great people.
Celebrate
So
greeting. Yeah,
I'll make
absolutely.
sure I'll take a little, I'll get on the plane and watch one of my shows that check out just a
Yeah,
little
yeah. So
uninterrupted on the plane.
little bit of a break, just
Yes.
to refresh and
Reboot.
everything to
Yes.
reboot. Yes, for sure. All right, thanks,
It'll be
Kate, for
great.
your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Chat soon.
Talk to you soon. Have a good one.